The adventure continues this week on Ford Outfitters. North America is home to 3 elk species: Rocky Mountain, Thule, and arguably the toughest to hunt, the Roosevelt elk. Prized for their size and revered for their cunning ability to disappear in the dense forest they call home, Fred arrives ready for battle in Washington.
I do think we've got a lot of challenges that I'm going to be facing this week, but I'm always up for a challenge.
Fred Eichler has taken all 29 species recognized by Pope & Young with a recurve bow. Conway Bowman cracked the code for Mako sharks on the fly. The outdoors has led them to adventures around the world. Now, 2 of North America's most accomplished sportsmen and their Ford trucks are on a mission to learn the secrets and stories of America's best outfitters. This is The Outfitters, built by Ford F-Series.
Well, this week I'm heading to Washington to hunt with Mike Jenkins of Upfront Outfitters. We're going to be hunting near the town of, I think it's Skamakaway. I think I'm saying that right. And he's got a wall tent camp up in the mountains not far from the Columbia River. Well, this week I'm going to have a muzzleloader tag, but despite that, I'm going to try and go with my bow and arrow. And Mike was great. He's like, hey, even though it's muzzleloader season, if you want to take your bow and arrow, you're more than welcome to make it more difficult on yourself. So that's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna be hunting public land, and we're gonna be going after what I think is one of the toughest of the 3 species of elk, the Roosevelt elk. And to be considered a true Roosevelt, it has to be along the coast and west of I-5. It's gonna be a fun hunt, but I think it's also gonna be a challenging hunt as well. It was an absolute beautiful drive coming in here. And when you drop into this area of Washington, it's like a rainforest. There's ferns that are as tall as I am. You can't even see 20 yards through the brush in a lot of places. And that's part of the challenge of Roosevelt elk hunting. They're found in really thick rainforest-like conditions. So pulling into camp, it was like this little glade in the middle of this rainforest.
My uncle took me elk hunting at the age of 12 for the very first time. I had a herd of cows run by me at 12 yards. No bulls, but just to see those cows that close, that was it, man. That's all it took. And
what's up, guys? I'm Fred.
How was your trip?
Good.
Mike Jenkins.
Mike, Fred, nice to meet you.
How's it going, buddy? Daryl Hall.
Daryl, nice to meet you, sir.
Welcome to camp.
Thank you. This is gorgeous.
Upfront Outfitters Roosevelt Elk Camp is located just outside the tiny town of Skamakaway, Washington, on the opposite shore of the Columbia River from Oregon. An hour inland from Long Beach and the Pacific Coast, and about 80 miles northwest from the hipster city of Portland, we find thick Pacific Northwest rainforest, rivers, and timber-rich mountains.
Well, after rolling into camp, getting a tour from Mike and Daryl, they said, hey, Fred, we have some chores to do. We've got to run in. We got to grab some ice for the coolers. I said, well, I'll help you guys with that. And then afterwards, I'd like to take a few practice shots with my bow.
I grew up in western Washington in a small town called Chehalis. So I grew up in the heart of elk country for western Washington. It's also the heart of the timberlands. My dad had a logging company, so I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of my young years in the woods with him. I got my start guiding.
Good height, Fred, a couple inches to the left.
I was going actually on a drop hunt to the state of Montana. I was looking for an outfitter to go on a drop hunt with. And I got in touch with a guy by the name of Keith Rush, owned Lakeview Guest Ranch in southwest Montana. And Keith told me, he says, what, you fall timber? Have I got a deal for you? So Keith invited me to his place to come on a hunt. In trade, I would fall some timber for him. And by the time I was done working for Keith for a month or 2, he had offered me a job to guide for him. After spending several years guiding in Montana, I had the opportunity to go guide in the state of New Mexico. I fell in love with it and ended up guiding in New Mexico for the next several years, and that's when I decided that I could not imagine me doing anything else. So I decided to start my own outfitting business in 2008. I was gone when my dad passed away, and my mom had become sick with cancer, and I thought it was maybe time to move home. So I came back to Washington And about the time I did, I started getting calls from people that had hunted with me in other states asking about the Roosevelt elk. So being my native ground and the place I grew up, I said, sure, yeah, I hunt Roosevelt elk. So now I guide half my season in New Mexico, and then as soon as that season's over, Washington season starts, and now I'm able to finish it up with species hunters here in Washington State.
Well, after shooting the bow a few times, Mike said, Fred, we want to show you some pictures that we've got from our trail cameras. We've had trail cameras out in the field, and we want to show you some of the elk that we've been getting pictures of just before archery season started about a month ago.
So we just checked one the other day, and here's some of the pictures from it.
Look at that. That's pretty sweet. Look at how dark they are. Man, they're such beautiful animals. And look at how well they blend in even.
Oh yeah, they're such it's amazing that how an animal that size could disappear in a blink of an eye in the rainforest.
And that's even relatively open country.
Yeah, this is pretty open compared to a lot of it. And these bulls are all resident. These bulls have been here since their antlers fell off and since they started growing. So these bulls I've been able to watch so far all season.
Beautiful elk.
So yeah, this is one of our primary hunting areas that we'll be looking at this week.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm getting excited.
Yeah, so should be good. Should be a good time this week.
Roosevelt elk are considered one of the hardest elk to hunt. Thick forest makes locating these beasts only one aspect of the challenge, and with temperatures well above average at the start of the muzzleloader season, Mike and Fred know they may need to depend on their legs to get them far into elk habitat if they want a shot at bagging a bull. The Outfitters is brought to you by the Ford F-150, the future of tough.
Mike sets up a nice camp. That was apparent as soon as I pulled in. He's got a cook tent, he's got sleeping tents, and everything was arranged very neat. And that's something you always like to see.
This particular hunt is based on public land for Roosevelt. It's a lot of timberlands, clear cuts. It's open to the public, so the public can hunt anywhere that I go. But a lot of what I hunt is behind locked gates or in deep drainages where most people just don't like to go, but that's kind of where the elk like to go. You know, you're plagued by hot weather, fog, or, you know, torrential rains. I mean, it seems like there's always something, you know, against you when you hunt Roosevelt. Mainly the type of stuff they live in compared to a Rocky Mountain elk. You know, these are in heavy rainforest and thick jungle-like stuff, and you just don't have that type of terrain and habitat, you know, when you hunt the Rocky Mountain elk.
Well, since it's opening day of muzzleloader, Mike said, Fred, I'm expecting a lot of people out in the woods. We're gonna try and get as far away from pressure as we can. We're gonna go quite a ways away from anybody else.
Joining Mike and Fred is Daryl Hall, one of Mike's lead guides who will provide an extra set of eyes and ears in this extremely tough habitat and assist should they get an elk on the ground.
Every outfitter has their own way of hunting, and one of Mike's favorite ways to hunt is still hunting. And that means slipping through the brush, really quiet, slowly. You're stopping occasionally and glassing. You're using your ears, you're using your eyes, you're even using your nose to see if you can smell the elk. We are literally trying to slip in and spot the elk before the elk spot us.
Tiptoeing ever so slowly and glassing and looking behind every tree. The thing is, these elk, most of the time when you see one, they're already within shot range. I mean, they're already under 100 yards. If you are not moving slow, if you are not being quiet, you will never have a chance of slipping in on one of these elk.
So we are hiking and hiking and hiking. And we're looking for elk and doing everything we can. We're glassing every time we stop. We're following fresh elk tracks. We're following elk trails. It's like they're ghosts. Occasionally we're stopping, setting up, and we're calling. I'm calling, Mike's calling, Daryl's calling. We're trying to sound like a herd of elk. We're not trying to call too aggressively, just enough to hopefully get a bull curious and walk right in and check out and see what we are. It's opening morning. I can tell Mike and Daryl are just as bummed out as I am. So we just keep going further and further in the bush.
Spending my time in New Mexico, I never realized that Rocky Mountain elk were so much easier than the Roosevelt elk. I love hunting Roosevelt. They're probably my favorite elk to hunt, even though they're difficult. I like the challenge. I want to hunt those tough elk. I think it makes you a better hunter.
We went 10 to 12 miles, and every couple miles, it just keeps looking better and better, and we're expecting an elk to pop out at any minute.
So we were hiking and hiking and hiking like crazy, and finally I swore I heard a cow mew.
When the Outfitters returns, will the hard-earned miles and super stealth technique pay off? Day one of the Washington muzzleloader season has been tough on Fred, Mike, and Daryl. But after heading 12 miles deep into the forest, the guys finally found their first Roosevelt.
Unfortunately, as so often happens when you're hunting, nothing showed up. We never spotted what Mike thought he heard, but that's hunting. Well, at the end of that first day, even though we were a little bummed we hadn't even seen an elk, we were excited because tomorrow was another day. You know, there's 3 different species of elk in North America. There's the Rocky Mountain elk, there's the Thule elk, and there's the Roosevelt elk that I'm hunting now. Now, I've successfully harvested all 3 with a bow and with a recurve bow, so I've got a little bit of experience with the different species, but of the 3, to me, the Roosevelt are the most difficult.
Roosevelt elk are the largest in body size of the elk subspecies, yet bulls have smaller antlers than Rocky Mountain elk, an adaptation for navigating the dense coastal rainforest they inhabit. A mature bull may push 1,000 pounds, but can disappear in the coastal ranges of California, Oregon, Washington, BC, and Alaska. During the fall rut, the bulls will bugle in a display of dominance, but they are generally more subdued in their vocalization than their interior cousins, wary, elusive, and made more so by their dense habitat. Roosevelt elk are one of the most challenging North American game animals to hunt.
You know, all hunters have their favorite weapon or their go-to. For me, it's the bow. I also love hunting and I love eating elk meat. Now, like Mike the outfitter said, Fred, hey, I understand you want to try and take this difficult elk with your bow, but since it is muzzleloader season, let's take a muzzleloader as well. So if you see an elk, if we've got a shot at a bull and it's out of range for your bow, hey, that may be the only option we have.
On day 2, we started easing down this old grade above some farmer fields where we had just glassed 5 or 6 bulls the night before the season started. So we're easing in there, and then all of a sudden, kapow, right shortly after daylight, you heard that great elk stick break.
We all heard elk off this little ridge and a bottom.
We got two choices. Either we sit on the road and wait for him to move again, or Fred, you drop off here and start just slipping underneath this real slow, just below the road, you know, on these little points.
It's gonna be thick, it's probably gonna be close. And I'm looking at the muzzleloader, I'm looking at the bow, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave the bow. We start slipping down through the brush, and it's thick, and we're trying to pick our way through.
Fred, let's try to get right up here to this stump where that old can is, and we'll glass this little draw right here.
All of a sudden, an elk spotted. It's across the ridge from us, and all I can see is the legs. So Mike gets excited. Mike's like, Fred, get down and get the muzzleloader ready.
Take a rest, Fred, take a rest.
And I'm going nuts. I'm looking at this elk. I can just see its legs. I know it's 66 yards. I know that's in range of the muzzleloader, but I can't see what it is. Only bulls are legal. At this point, I can only see the legs.
The bull took a step forward, and at the same time he turned his head. I could see brow tine, so I knew he was legal. But then at that point, Fred didn't have a shot and the bull disappeared. We never saw it again. That was our morning excitement, and the rest of the day we never saw another thing. So the weather has been just crazy hot and dry, making still hunting just incredibly difficult. Sitting still has been incredibly difficult just because the elk aren't moving much. So now the storm front's coming and I am fired up, man. It's supposed to go from almost 2 months of straight hot weather to pouring down rain and some good cloud cover. So I'm pumped. This is gonna get the elk moving up. This is our chance to go out with a bang on this hunt.
When I woke up this morning, it was raining, and I was like, hot dog, this is what we need. Now we have perfect conditions. If it was ever gonna happen, it's gonna happen this morning. There's obviously a ton of logging that takes place around here. Now, are these trees just naturally coming back up, or are these all replanted?
No, they replant this stuff, Fred. This is actually probably 4th generation growth. And, you know, some of this stuff here is anywhere from 5 to 15 years old. It provides great habitat for the elk, a lot of good feed, good cover, they feel secure in it. So we're gonna go up here and start glassing the back edge of that, looking for those bulls that like to stay secluded, hide right on the back end feeding.
Instead of hiking as much today, we're gonna be glassing, doing a lot of glassing.
Yeah, switch it up, see what'll work here.
Sounds great.
Okay, Fred, we're just gonna wind this road up and around, and we're gonna glass this clear cut over here. It's just prime age habitat, big timbered canyon on the bottom end. So we'll slip right down over the back away from the road and just really pick that clear cut over here, especially with this rain. So we get up there and we're glassing and there's a cow and a calf. And man, I'm fired up. It's like, wow, there's elk.
Now we're just gonna keep watching this bottom right here and see if anything comes up behind it. They don't seem to be going out of that clear cut too fast. I just want to get a peek at this other clear cut back here. All right, I'll watch these. Keep an eye on those. I want to just kind of look at that spot right over there.
Although only bulls are legal shooters, spotting these elk is good news. Odds are, where there are cows and calves, the bulls aren't far away.
Well, Mike signals that we need to bail off and get closer to him, closer to this cow and this calf. So me and Daryl bail off the ridge and we join Mike down below. Now we're starting to close the gap. We're a little over 200 yards, still out of muzzleloader range, but we're within 220 yards of this cow and this calf.
So we start easing down the hill, trying to get a little bit better look. You know, we're pumped up. We're in a prime location. We got enough rain to keep these animals moving. And this cow and a calf, they're just milling around. They don't even know we're there. I mean, they have not a care. So we start sliding down the hill into a little bit better range just in case there's some more elk there. And then lo and behold, snap, pow. And bam, there they are. I hear a mew and more elk right below me in the canyon. So we start creeping down, trying to get within gun range, at least of the cow, because I knew that the elk were closer than what that cow was. So I figured if we got within range of the cow, anything else that came out would have it made.
So I'm pumped. We're a little over 200 yards, but if we see a bull, we've got no problem sliding down the hill and closing the gap even closer. This is it. It's the 11th hour. This is the last day. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen right now.
We just sat there watching the cow and the calf and working our way along the edge, just waiting. Any second we're gonna see that bull. But he never showed, and the cow and the calf ended up making their way into the timber. And there we stood, man, just heart broke.
Nice spot.
Sorry it took so long.
No, that's all right. That's awesome. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, well, I wish you would have had horns on it.
Oh, hey, that's something. That was fun though. As we got in the Ford and headed to the next spot, the fog started rolling in. The same weather that had brought us some moisture also brought us some thick fog. And we literally couldn't see anything. My hopes of bringing a Roosevelt elk home just rolled away with the fog. You know, every hunter, just like fishermen, we've all had days where we go out and nothing happens. But that's the great thing about being a hunter, a fisherman, or just an outdoorsman. It really doesn't matter if you bring something home. The success of a trip is having a good time, spending time outdoors, and if you enjoy every sunrise, every sunset, and the beautiful scenery that you're surrounded by, then you never really have an unsuccessful hunt.